Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ellis Nordhoff, and today I'm joined by Richard Hall, host of the Inter podcast in English and creator of Gentleman Ultra. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm good. It's nice to have the Italian season kicking back off, and it's been a good one so far. An open season, we think, in this year because there's no guaranteed Scudetto winner this year, so it's going to be an interesting one. So, looking forward to it.
Well, we're very interested in Italian football at the moment because there's a certain player who might be joining Everton soon, and that's what this video is today. It's a scout report on Beto from Udinese. So we'll kick it straight off. Beto, what's he like?
It's really interesting because he's one of those players, first and foremost, who you certainly have players who are child prodigies, just come through and straight away, they hit the heights really early. And Beto's certainly not one of those players in that sense. Now, that's nothing to be concerned about because there are plenty of players who come through late. This is a guy who was signed for Benfica very early on. He didn't have a football background. We're talking off air, but similar to my parents, their parents not interested in football. And so, didn't watch a lot of football when he was growing up, poor background. But when he did start playing, he was very tall, very strong for his age. He's 6'4" now. And he got signed for Benfica's academy, which obviously in Portugal is huge. But then he was let go, and he claimed that that's part of one of the best things that ever happened to him because he got the fight there. So his mentality is extremely good. Even when he got let go, he was working in KFC in Portugal. He was playing for a fifth-tier Portuguese side. I think Union Terraia, if my memory mistakes me. I'm sure people now tell me I'm wrong with that one, but I'm not great on fifth division Portuguese football. He continues to really push through. He started to make it into the big leagues in Portugal. And for people who don't know, Udinese, run by the Pozzo family, who a lot of you guys might know from owning obviously Watford. Udinese used to have a better scouting network, massive in Portugal, South America, brought a lot of players through. We can see through their ranks. I mean, even like the likes of Alexis Sanchez, Sama Handanovic, Montari, you could go on and on. And so they brought him in after a successful season in Portugal. I think he got 12 goals in 23 games, something along those lines. Since his arrival in Italy, he's been looked at quite heavily by the likes of Napoli. Obviously, Everton looked at him, I think, in January as well. But as a player, he's interesting because he's, like I said before, he's very strong. He's quick in a sprinter's way. He's not quick up the mark. He's quick when he gets going. He's a bit of a freight train when he gets going. And technically, he's very good. So it's going to be really interesting. But one thing I will say is I don't think he's going to be to set standards if we would. 25 years old, a lot of potential. But I don't think he's going to come in and get you 20 goals. But what he can do elsewhere is quite interesting.
So you say that he's not quite as prolific as perhaps Romelu Lukaku, who we've had in the past, who you'll know all about being an Inter fan. But you say that he's got quite a lot of other strengths to him, and it's not just about his goals. What are those strengths?
Yeah, I think when you look at certain players, you can look at like stereotypical number nines, who are there to look at that space in the box, a few movements, not really get involved in the play, but they're going to put the ball in the back of the net. That's not him. There's two reasons for that. One, as I mentioned before, one of his strengths is the fact that he is physically strong and he likes to run at defenders. Now, you can only do that if you're coming from deep. Now, what also happens there is you've got to look at the team he's playing in, Udinese. Now, Udinese often play with 3-5-2. It's sort of set in their DNA. And they always have overlapping. Normally, sometimes it's one fullback and one winger, but basically wing backs. They overlap a lot. And the midfielders two of the attacking midfielders do like to get into the box. What happens is with Beto, and they've had this before with Okaka, who played before, who will come a little bit deeper. Udinese toyed with this. They've had that sort of diminutive little striker in the middle, and it's never worked. Like Passato, when he was there, it just didn't work. So they've gone back to this sort of format. And Beto will come deep, hold the ball up, and you can then see the overlap. Often. Now that means he starts from a deeper position, and that's what he likes. And so when you'll see a lot of his goals, you will see, of course, don't get me wrong, he's strong in the air and he will have the ability to get goals in the box. I'm not saying he can't, but his preference is to come deep to link people into play. And so even though Beto's goals with Udinese haven't been bad, it's like I said, you're looking around that 10 to 15 mark. What he's brought out the other players, you see more goals from the wing backs, you see more goals from the midfielders, and he's that link. Now, for a comparison, I'm not going to use this as a directing comparison, so please don't quote me, anybody. But you can see a very similar player in like Marcus Thuram, who's gone to Inter. He whilst he was very good on the wing, he also then has come in, holds it deep, and you can see him putting like Lautaro into play. So I think one of the things we could also compare him to is, and again, like I said, it's not a direct comparison, is the likes of Harry Kane and the basis of how he's gone to Bayern Munich, because
that's promising.
No comparison in the sense, in the just the style of play and the fact of you've got Gnabry and Sane on the wings, or whoever wants to play there, and he comes and drops deep the midfield, then overlap again. And that's why sometimes with Harry Kane, you see him obviously late getting into the box. And that's where he's not being watched. And he's very similar in the style and want of play, to do that. And for me, it is quite important that, again, that's not always going to bring that striker, therefore, as many goals as he would be if he was acting like a number 9, just sat there, not interfering with play and waiting for the ball to come to him. Yes, he would get more goals in that sense. But again, it's one of those situations, because of his strength and anything else, counter-attacking, perfect player. If you've got because of the strength, and he's hard to knock off the ball and he's quick, he has got a rocket of a shot. Not always accurate, but he has got a rocket of a shot. And he's got a lot of promise. But I think it's what he'll bring to the team will be key. And also as well, it's his mentality. He works extremely hard, and for the culture of a lot of British clubs, that's really important. In Italy, sometimes tactically, and whether you're quite astute and whether you make the right runs is more important. But yeah, I mean, look, he will work hard. He's got a good mentality, like I said before, after the Benfica situation. And he's confident. He said again in the interview, he can play in any league. He's confident he can do that. And I think with his ability, and also one thing I do have to say is that he's tactical. Listen, I know people talk about, they're ready for the Premier League, and it baffles me in some respects. And it's the same if someone said, are they ready for Serie A? I mean, yes, it's very tactical in Serie A still. But at the end of the day, if you have an intelligent player, he doesn't get more stupid when he goes to Italy. If Beto's not going to get slower or weaker when he comes to the Premier League. So yeah, at the moment, he's as an athlete, he's exceptional. His work ethic and his training, his professionalism. So yeah, he's definitely going to be an asset. And as I said before, the price tag's, I think, pretty reasonable.
Let's pick up on a few points you made there. The link-up play sounds really important, and it's going to be really important to us because our midfielders and attackers haven't got enough goals in recent years. That's an absolute fact that we're all aware of. And we need players to be brought into play more. And we've signed a few attacking players. We look potentially linked with Kamaldeen Sulemana, and Jack Harrison's already been brought in. Arnaut Danjuma's already been brought in. Players from the wings who you hope can get involved with goals. And if Beto can help them to do that and hold the play up and get more involved, that's useful for us, because it might be a case of perhaps Everton need that striker to get involved rather than just be there to get on the end of things, because we need to link up our play and have a bit of a structure ourselves. So we might not have the luxury of just having a player you can purely use just to put the ball in the net. So I think that could be really useful for us. And also, I think the fact that he works hard, that massively fits into the culture at Everton. I think the fans will absolutely love him for that. A player who's passionate and looks like he really cares about playing for the club is massively important to us. So that's two really promising things that you've said about him there. I want to know a bit more what he's like in an attack, though. Is he definitely a player that you could see playing on his own up front? Because we've often been waiting for a player who can take the mold of Dominic Calvert-Lewin and play in a similar way. And currently the only strikers we've got, the likes of Neil Maupay, and we're not too sure on Yusuf Chamiti yet. He's still coming through as a young player. We have players who can only play in a 2, so we're hoping that Beto can play on his own, can he?
Yeah, I think he can. I mean, he's proved that at Udinese. I mean, sometimes they can play that. Depends on who Udinese play. Obviously, they optimise that 3-5-2, so it can be 3-5-1-1. And that depends. I mean, they've used Salamadic just behind him quite recently. He's a very creative midfielder. Again, it's him in and off the ball. I actually think that he's rated exceptionally highly, even though he's a very difficult character. That's another story. But he's been linked with Inter and the likes of others. But part of that's because of the link up with Beto and how he's been playing with him. He can definitely play on it up on his own. It does depend on the quality of your wing backs, wingers, really, in your midfield. I mean, that's where, obviously, if he's just going to play in that upfront role and the ball's going to be hit to him and there's no support, then you're isolating him completely. It's pointless. But I don't think that's the case with, the people aren't going to put him in that situation. He's not just someone you're going to lump the ball up to. It's a guy who's, even if he's 6'4", he's very technical. It's like when you look at the likes of, I'm trying to think of a player who, you look at Marko Arnautovic, who's gone back to Inter now, ex West Ham Stoke as well, and obviously Inter before then and in Germany. Again, he's a player who's a bit deceptive. You think, he's just a tall player. It's going to be, good in the air. And it's so lapsed to think that. Technically, he's absolutely superb. And I mean, he really is superb, with the ball at his feet. But again, it's that link up again. And with Beto as well, he does. That's not saying he can't score goals. I mean, he's one of those players where, again, a bit like Arnautovic, where ever so often he's going to unleash a shot, and it's either going to be an absolute screamingly brilliant goal, or you're going to think, why has he gone for that? But I like that in a player. Sometimes he will try something that's just completely unusual.
A bit of bravery, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And he's very confident. And that goes back to when I said before, he's confident in himself. He really is. I mean, again, that statement, he can play in any league. I think that he's not a player who needs to be loved as such. But I think that, and I wouldn't say he's even overly ambitious, but the last interview I read with him, one consistency, he just wanted to be happy in what he's doing. He enjoys playing football. He's happy at Udinese. There was, but again, if a bid comes in, it helps Udinese. It helps. I think one way to describe the way he plays and the fact that is to look at Udinese's system. And when you look at that 3-5-2, we go back to before they had Stefano Kaka, who's again, a big, tall player. Again, technically quite good. The ex-Sampdoria and Roma graduate, wasn't he? Again, can hold the ball up and knock the ball out and increase the play. And a guy that you guys won't like, but probably is quite interesting, is who are they going to replace Beto with? And at the moment, this morning, is apparently it's going to be Divock Origi.
Wow.
So
we don't want to know about him.
So, yeah, I mean, listen. But what's been quite interesting about this is that Gazzetta, Corriere dello Sport, Tutto Sport, the main papers in Italy, are very focused on the big 7 clubs. Realistically, they don't really, unless there's something going on. And I've been quite shocked at how little coverage it's actually got in Italy about Beto moving. It's always been 3rd, 4th page. It's never been. And I was surprised because obviously, a signing like that going to the Premier League, it's not a huge amount in today's Saudi glittered transfer fees, but it's still a substantial transfer fee, and it's a loss, in my opinion, for Serie A. However, Gazzetta described Divock Origi as a flop at Milan, but again, he's a player that can sort of, again, hold the ball up, and I think if he's consistently played, would be better. I actually think Divock Origi going to Udinese is not a bad move, because if he's consistently played, which he wasn't in his last 2 clubs, the clubs were too big for him, as simple as that, then he might be able to come into his own a little bit. And I think that's why Everton's a really good move for Beto, because I think you will consistently play him. And I think that's where you're going to get the best out of him. A player like this needs games. It's not going to work if Everton decided, thought of him as a big, tall striker who's just decent in the air and you can throw him on for the last 20, 30 minutes, it's pointless. This is a guy who's going to define your system in a sense, and be the gel, really. So, yeah, I'll be really interested to see how he gets on.
That's great to know that he's going to be key to the system, because we really want to see the system be outlined this season and know that we have a proper style of play. We're still waiting to see some consistent patterns in the team, and I'd hope that having him in that side would allow us to do that and have him as the reference point to play off, but not just a player to send long balls to his head, like you say, a player to actually give it to feet and get him involved in the game. And that could be really crucial for us for getting other players into play and really involving the rest of the team as well as just him. You did touch on the transfer fee, and you said it's not quite that much nowadays, but for Everton, we're quite cash strapped at the moment, and 30 million seems like a lot. 30 million euros, I think it is, seems like a lot of money, but we don't know how good Beto actually is. So I'd be interested to see, what do you think of the price tag? Is that good value for him? Are we slightly overpaying, underpaying? What would you say?
No, I don't think you're over, but I think it's about right in today's market. It's very difficult to sort of put reference points in transfer fees, in my opinion,
It
anymore
changes
because
so often, doesn't it?
yeah, it's crazy. And with the Saudi influence, it's not helped things. But I think when you look at it, 30 million, and you look at some of the players. I can only use it from again. The reference point is different from the Premier League to Serie A. So maybe I'm using it from an Italian point of view, where I think that 30 million for Udinese is a very good deal. I can understand why they're doing that. They can reinvest, as we mentioned before. Their scouting network's exceptional. They'll put that back into a use of 3-4 players rather than just one. So for Udinese, it's a good deal. For Everton, I think it's a good deal because I think if you look at what you would get for a striker for 30 million if you were buying within the UK or England, I don't think you'd get a player as good personally. Maybe you would. I don't know. Like I said, we're talking off there. My knowledge of Italian football far outweighs my knowledge of English football. But you can see some of the transfers that transfer fees that are going on players that personally, 50 million here, 50 million there seems to be throwaway at the moment. But for me, I think it's at the age he is as well. 25. It's a good investment. Again, Beto is, for me, as I said before, and I keep reiterating, he's only as good as your wingers and midfield allow him to be.
Right.
If you focus on him and you have that structure around him, he will be that linchpin, and he will get you goals as well as linking other people, and he will create more of a team ethic because there'll be more players on the score sheet. If he's used in the incorrect way, he could be complete flop. But and that's how it is. But 30 million. No, I think in today's market it's fair. It's I don't think the wages are astronomical either. And again, he's a player who, for me, I wouldn't. There are certain players who are going to move on quite quickly. I wouldn't say Beto's one of those players. I think he just wants to enjoy his football, and if someone's willing to, start him every game like he's been doing at Udinese, then fair play. He'll stay. So. Like I said, I'm interested. I'm really interested to see how he will do. But technically good, strength, yes. Again, pace, it's a strange one. I would love to see it when he holds the ball up, plays it off, and then if he can get him behind, normally, behind the defence, he can shrug off anyone. He is deceptive. So, look, he's not been called up for the Portugal side yet. He was in the 55 that were looked at for Qatar. Again, I think he will break through pretty soon, and give a different aspect. Again, for me, from a international point of view, I'd have him in my squad all the time because he gives you a different option no matter what team you have. You can switch up the tactics there. So again, and when you talked about him playing alongside someone else, yes, that's possible because again, it's perfect. It's almost if he plays a little deeper and you've got a smaller forward or a quicker forward who can run beyond him, is the same thing as having that attacking midfielder or a Trequartista, as they say in Italy, that can just play off. So I think the transfer fee, I wouldn't complain at that at all.
Well, you mentioned there about him perhaps being that player a bit deeper and having a smaller, quicker forward. That could be Arnaut Danjuma for us. He could be a player who could really help get the best out of Arnaut Danjuma. And he is 25, so it's a good age, isn't it? And he's perhaps not quite at his peak yet. So I'm sure there are some elements where he needs to improve on. What would you say are his weaknesses? And do you think he's still got a chance to improve?
Oh, definitely. I think he has. I think he's improved in the last season. Into the fact of, I think what you always get, from Italy, very quickly, I don't want to go labour the point here, but I used to, well, still do, I watched Intertrain for a long time and other Italian teams, and in England, obviously, it's just one training session, and in Italy, they always do two, and one with the ball. And one of my favourite ones was Mancini, when we were watching him, and they literally put grids out like a chess piece, and they spray it onto the grass. And so you've got one pitch, and they have no ball for the afternoon. And so Mancini will get the ball in his arm, and he'll run, and he'll say, here. And if the ball's here, where is everybody? And everyone knows exactly where they are.
Right.
And so will have that from Udinese. Udinese are very good at that, as all Italian teams tend to be. So tactically, he'll be very astute and very aware. Now, the interesting thing here is, I'm going to quote Patrice Evra, where this is where the only fall down, you talk about weaknesses, could be. Now, Beto for me is a player who needs to be told, he needs to be instructed quite heavily. And so, for instance, if he's in that structure, Patrick Evans said when he was playing left back, was it left back? Yeah, for Manchester United. Basically, as long as the centre back was here at the side of him and his winger was there, as long as he interacted with those two, he was free. Overlap when he wanted, do what he wanted. But in Italy, it's different. And when he was under Max Allegri or whoever, before, if the ball is here, you will go in your position. And that's how they hold their structure so well. Now, for Beto will be excellent at that. So he'll know that if he comes deep, he'll know that he should have wingers going X, Y, and Z. If he's just left to his own devices, I'd be interested to see. I mean, he might cope with it perfectly well, but that's something I always wonder about if the players come to Italy first and then go to the Premier League, because it's a little more free. So that's one thing. Second one is his shooting a little bit, and I don't want to scare anyone with that. He's not that he's. I'm not saying that he cannot find the net. He certainly can, and when he does, he's blistering, and he's very intelligent as to where the ball is and to where the goal is. Sometimes I just find, in the nicest possible respect, when he goes, especially when he comes onto the right hand side and he tries to come back in, that's either going to go in the net like a Batistuta shot, or someone's getting killed in the crowd. It's sometimes, but I mean, listen, that's being uber harsh. I think that at 25, he's coming on and he's learning. I think he was learning a lot at Udinese. I think it's a great club to be at, because it instills mentality, it instills a way of play and a discipline. I just hope that he can continue that, and I hope he gets the right instruction, because I think he needs it. But I mean, that's really, I wouldn't say it's uber harsh, but look, I mean, when you ask about weaknesses of players, I always normally answer it with, what do you expect from him first? Because, every player's got a billion weaknesses. But, if you, like I said from the very start, if he goes and gets 25 goals in the first season, I'll be baffled. I'll be so happy, because I'll see, wow, he's really coming on. And maybe I come back on and we can talk about him becoming really hitting that next level.
I hope so.
For me, but for me, just a complete team player, professional, disciplined, and with all the attributes. It just needs, I wouldn't say rough diamond, but he just needs to be polished a little bit.
That's fantastic to hear. And I think he seems like a player who is going to be really useful for us. We need to temper our expectations and not think he's going to come in and do a Romelu Lukaku. That's a one-of-a-kind kind of player, but he might offer more in a team structural sense than the likes of Romelu Lukaku did for us. Yeah. And it seems like he's going to be a really interesting player to watch about how he can bring the rest of the team in. And we could see the best of Dwight McNeil, Arnaut Danjuma, and Jack Harrison now with him there. And hopefully we can get a few more in after this as well. We need to get this one through the door first. I will admit it is not done yet, but hopefully by the start of next week, it will be done. Well, that completes our scout report into Beto from Udinese. It's been great having you on, Richard. You've given us some fantastic insight there.
Anytime. It's like I said, been on before and really enjoyed it. And also as well, I'm interested to see how these players continue to develop. I mean, as I say, spend a lot of time watching this guy, and you wish them all the best when they move on to different leagues or different challenges. And I'm hopeful. All I would say on the last thing is just give him time. That's it. Just give him time and believe in him a little bit. And I think if the crowd can do that and he can feel that he's wanted, you'll see the best in him. But don't expect him to hit the ground running. But I'm going to put him on my fantasy football team now as soon as it happens, because I guarantee he's going to get the hat trick on his debut now. I've said all this, but no, in all seriousness, I think value for money and a very good professional with a lot of attributes. So good luck to him, and good luck to Everton.
Brilliant. That's your pledge of support there, putting him in your fantasy team. And we might do too soon as well if he starts off well. Hopefully he does, because we haven't scored a goal yet this season, so we really need it. But that's all from the Toffee Blues. Now, please do check Richard out. He's got some great stuff online and really, really knowledgeable about Italian football. I personally don't know a lot about it, so if you want to find out more, please do check it out. But that's all for now. Please leave a like. Let us know what you think about the signing of Beto. Hopefully, he's the man to provide some goals for Everton. But that's all for now. See you later.